Mike at the Mic. Expectations and Hopes After Brain Injury. Presented on Friday, March 22nd, 2024. Host Mike Greenwald and fellow Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey Voices members explore the challenges individuals face in their lives after a brain injury and learn tips to maximize overall quality of life. This presentation is sponsored by the Northern New Jersey Traumatic Brain Injury System and Kessler Foundation.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to our quarterly virtual speaker series, Spring Brainstorm. This series is sponsored by the Kessler Foundation as part of our TBI Model System Grant, which is funded by the National Institute on Disability, Independent Living, and Rehabilitation Research. Today's presentation is by Mike at the Mic, entitled Expectations and Hopes After Brain Injury. It is now my pleasure to introduce Michael Greenwald. Mr. Greenwald has been an integral part of the Brain Injury Alliance of New Jersey since 1992. A retired teacher, Mr. Greenwald currently serves as an officer on the Alliance's Board of Trustees. He has been a support group leader for over 25 years and was a strong force in establishing the Council for the Head Injured Community, now known as Voices, advancing the brain injury community. Voices' mission is to champion and publicize the advocacy, rights, and needs of people who have survived a brain injury. Mr. Greenwald is the creator of Mike at the Mic, a panel discussion of topics related to brain injury that has become one of the signature events at the Alliance. Thank you, Mike, for being here this morning with us.
Our topic today, as been mentioned, is expectations and hopes after a brain injury. Coming to terms with and accepting life as a result of a brain injury can be a challenge, as can be the many distractions that deter one from living as fully as possible. This session will focus on both how people's lives have been undermined, and most important, on how people can aim to maximize the quality of life as a person with brain injury. Our panel has a number of objectives. Our first objective is to learn about pleasure activities that a person with brain injury can do as they're living with a brain injury. Next, to suggest activities that some people with brain injury may want to try. And finally, to discuss the importance of managing expectations and hopes while living with a brain injury. Our panel is composed of 3 members, and it looks like we have all 3 members. Our first panel member, I'd like to hear from these panel members about themselves and their relation to brain injury. Our first panel member is Patty Thompson. Patty, good to see you.
Good morning, Mike. Good morning, everybody. Hi, thank you for being here today. And I'm a 10-year survivor, going on my 10-year anniversary now of brain injury I sustained at work. And they called it a concussion, but it led to much more deeper and more insidious changes and a cascade and avalanche of other health conditions that came with it. And it's been a struggle, and it's been a challenge, and it's been a journey to get to where I am now to help advocate for those who don't have a voice or who aren't sure quite yet. So this is what I'm trying here to bring awareness and make change and make a positive difference for the next person.
Thank you so much, Patty. Our next panel member is Joe Caminiti.
Good morning. My name is Joe Caminiti. My accident was in 1995. I was in a bicycle accident. I was airlifted to Morristown Memorial. I did my rehab at Kessler. I returned to work in 1996. Came to the point where I couldn't work anymore and I had to retire. And I'm doing the best I can now.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks for being on our panel. And our final panel member is Sharon Nolte. Sharon?
Hi, Mike. Thanks for hosting this and for starting this from the very beginning. I remember meeting you in 2000 and I think 18 at a Mike to Mike. I fell off a ladder and in 2011 and went to the hospital as an outpatient and was not diagnosed until, and I was cleared because my CAT scan was fine. But I never felt the same. And it was a good fall. And finally, in 2006, we started more testing and more testing. And, this is about being persistent too and having a doctor advocate because she knew I wasn't right. So I had to have multiple tests, and then they did diagnose it. And I was relieved and started different types of treatment. And so it's been a journey. I'm not the person I was, but I am sorry. I still am the essence of who I am. And one of the gifts of this whole situation is that the brain injury community is really a wonderful, giving organizations and doctors and researchers, and I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people. And as Patty said, advocacy is my thing, and I'm happy to help out and see, sending these virtual hugs, as one woman in one of our groups says, to keep everyone going. We all need to hug each other.
Definitely. Thanks so much, Sharon. I will start the questioning, but it's very important, as was mentioned before, that the audience asks the questions and makes the comments, because we get along with Mike at the mic due to the fact that we have a good audience. And at Kessler, we have one of the best audiences. I'll start questioning, and hopefully it won't be too much for me. I'll start with Patty. Patty, how can you handle your personal hopes and expectations if they diminish over time?
Right. Well, yeah, definitely. Initially, I was quite incapacitated in my capabilities and abilities to really function independently. I had a lot of help, so definitely having a lot of help in tools in your toolbox, getting information on your head injury, attending support groups, learning about it, and then being kind of like come to terms with yourself, with your limitations and abilities on a daily basis, and trying to reach out and re-grasp those things that you did in the past to what capability you can on short bursts maybe, or finding new ways around it. My expectations, unfortunately, through this journey, I had to lower my expectations of people being marginalized and not validated by an injury. They judge you looking like you don't look like you have an injury. It's hidden and it's insidious and it's life altering. So it's about figuring out what you can and can't do at the moment, and then trying to reach out and maybe grab onto new ideas or new hobbies or anything you can feel that you can accomplish something or achieve something in any given time.
Thanks so much, Patty. Joe, would you like to comment on that? How do you handle your personal hopes and expectations if they diminish over time?
You got to do the best that you can. When I had my head injury, I thought I could go back to what I used to do, and I couldn't, and I just had to learn how to do something new.
What was it that you learned?
Well, I had to learn how to use a computer and write and work around the house and, instead of bike ride and, a lot of contact sports anymore. I couldn't do any more contact sports.
Joe, I know that you have been a writer. Did that have to be replaced with another activity?
Yeah, well, I do some graphics design. I'm not the best, but I try.
Sharon, can you comment on that? How about your personal hopes and expectations? Have they diminished over time?
So I'm still coming to grasps with that, honestly. And I think the difference is I can't do everything easily. And I used to be able to do things easily. I asked for help. And I was in a yoga class the other day, which yoga has been a really great life-saving tool for me. And one of the comments was, we're all beginners. And, we all are beginners at different times. So I think it's finding out what's good for us. I am athletic. I am trying to get back to the tennis court. I do arts and crafts. And Joe said it perfectly. You have to persevere. You just keep going and you have to find that balance. So I'm not playing doubles team tennis anymore, but I will get back on the court. So you take joy in the essence of what you can do.
If anybody in the audience would like to comment on that, we have now had our panel members, and if there are any questions that anybody in the audience has, please be sure to answer or to ask. We'll try to answer. What can you expect of your caregiver after your brain injury? Most of us have caregivers, and I guess it's difficult to even get used to living with a caregiver. But the main thing is expectations. What can you expect of your caregiver? Joe?
Well, after my accident, I lived with my brother for a while. And when I saw his wife having a fight with him because, I was overstaying my visit, I decided to go back home. But, really didn't expect a lot because, he had his own family and my mother was old. So if it wasn't for the Brain Injury Alliance, I guess I wouldn't have had nowhere to go.
But isn't your caregiver important to you?
Yeah, but he was working and he had a family and I really didn't want to bother him all the time.
Does anybody else want to comment on their caregiver?
I was fiercely independent. I did everything myself. I managed my home, my 2 kids. They were teenagers at the time. I worked full time. I did everything myself, cut the lawn, did my garden, absolutely everything. That fell flat, done. I couldn't do any of those things anymore from the pain, from the confusion, from the brain fog. So my boyfriend moved in with me and picked up the pieces for me. And through this chaos of this emotional twisting and everything that goes haywire, he stuck by me and he still is with me, and he helps pick up the slack of things that I don't even know what I'm supposed to be doing all day. And there could be a pile of dishes in the sink and I don't even realize they're there or that I have to do them. So he's very patient, very tolerant, and he understands what I was before to what happened after and how I went down this rabbit hole. Important thing is to know that to let go of the fear, to let go of the anger and resentment, let that go because that'll hold you back from reaching any potential. And through this, just be patient with yourself, because it doesn't heal right away, and you're still manifesting symptoms as you move through this process. So it's very hard to get back to where you were and the things you were doing. So really, just patience with yourself and your caregiver. And we can't do everything. And so we just have to learn to make goals and limitations.
One thing I think that we've noticed is that originally we might think about getting back to where we were, but as time goes on, I don't think getting back to where we were is ever possible.
No.
It,
Yeah,
we
it's a
have
constant
to
battle.
get used to a new life.
Yeah, like the old me. I still search for the old me. And that's where you get stagnant and stuck. And then you just have to reinvent yourself to the best of your abilities and create new pathways and avenues for yourself. Try to reach back to the things you used to do, although they can be triggering to remind you that you can't do those things. So take a sidestep from that. Instead of playing football, watch football, or, you know, if that's triggering for you, watch something else, or, you know, game, or if you're bed bound, if you're really limited in your abilities, there are things that can be done, like playing music, or oh gosh, like chair yoga, love your brain, those kind of things. Music, mindful meditations, that, you know, the person who's bedbound or who's limited, their brain is still working but can't process the world. So gentle things, and meditation, guided meditation, Reiki, things like that can help.
When I started at Kessler, my counselor said to me, she goes, "What if you can't do what you did before?" And I thought I could, but I found out I can't. Even riding a bicycle, you know, I get paranoid, and I had to stop doing that.
So it wasn't so much your ability, but it was what was going on inside your head.
Right. I think when my brother moved in, over here with me, he helped me do a lot of things. So, you know, I'm grateful for that.
Sharon, you wanted to say something.
You know, I live alone, and I was in a caregiving role at the time of my injury. I have realized that some of the things that I used to be able to do, I really can't do. And I have found completely overwhelming. My case manager at BIANJ, Stacy Lyons, has been a godsend.
Give me an example of something that you can no longer do.
I used to have a great job. I used to be a recruiter. I made a good salary. I interviewed, you know, recruitment is placing people at high levels. And I could multitask 8 things at the same time easily. And some days when I don't do the first thing on the list. So that's not a good thing. And I think it's people reaching out and saying, I need help. And I think it's very difficult to do. I needed to ask because I was having trouble.
Mike, there was a comment in the chat from Sandra about caregivers can also be included as your medical team. So doctors, therapists, and treatment team, especially for those who live alone or with a roommate.
Rich, would you like to say something? Welcome.
Yes, I have a question for your panel. You all seem to have accepted the change from what you did previous to your injury to where you are now. How, at first, at least for me, I was very, I guess, stuck in my old ways, and I was mad at my injury. How did everyone kind of accept where they are now, their limitations? They're not the things they could do extra now. How did everyone accept that?
I think I accepted it the day that I went riding again. I tried to ride again, and I was so paranoid that I got into, I crashed, and if I didn't have my helmet on, I probably would have made my injury even worse.
I don't think it's about acceptance. I mean, I think it is about acceptance, but I went kicking and screaming on that acceptance because I didn't realize that I needed to accept it.
What finally made you do the accepting?
the support groups that you go to, or that you think, oh, well, I should go, but I look fine, so I don't need as much help. But the truth of the matter is that we do need the help. Our brain has been injured. We have to, for the brain to accept that things are different, and that we all come to our own place where we say, I really need help. I can't, I can look put together.
To answer Peter's question, for me, there's no acceptance. This is unacceptable to my brain. It's just that I came to an understanding of what the dynamics are and how it does affect the brain. And I was so far down the rabbit hole, I mean, deep and dark. There was nothing. I was at my wit's end. There was nothing pleasurable. There was no hope. There was just nothing. And I found that I kept searching for like a light of hope. And I was looking outward for that light of hope. And then I realized, from being so sunk in, so deep and low, that the light is within. And you have to re-energize that spark of your own life, your own identity, even if you have to reinvent yourself. Just start working on little projects to change it out, to find something new, because the old things are just not attainable anymore, and they circle around and they tease you. But you have to kind of just smack that back a little bit and just reach out for something new and broaden your horizons, whatever it is. If it's walking, if it's going for a ride in a car, if it's doing short things, even going to a movie, anything to change out your environment, keep it within your limitations, your abilities. And so just keep reaching, and the light is within. So you have to find that and blow on it, the ember, and then it'll spark up a fire, and then you'll find yourself again.
Rich, I would like to ask you, you made a comment on how accepting everybody was to their new environments. Does that mean that you have not accepted your new environment, or what's the story with you?
I've accepted my new environment, my new way of doing things. At first, I was very upset that I couldn't do a lot of the things I did in the past. My injury was 14 years ago, and it took a while, and I was mad at everything. And over time, I realized that, hey, there's just some things I can do and some things I cannot do. And I'm not sure exactly what it was that made me go from anger to acceptance. And I just can't put my finger on it. And it seems everyone on your panel, including you, Mike, has kind of accepted this situation, not as perfect, but as what we're up to now, what we can do and what we can't do. And I was just wondering what other people's thoughts were on that subject.
That would be a good question for somebody from the audience. Accepting your new situation is something that is not easy. Would anybody in the audience like to comment on that? No, huh? Okay.
We do have a couple of hand raised, Mike. We have Angela Smith with her hand raised.
Okay, Angela, let's hear from you.
Right. Hello, everybody. Excuse me. What you just said, Mike, just kind of dovetailed right into the question that I was thinking for the panel. When you feel like you've come to an acceptance, or that moving forward, or as Patricia was putting it, the embers, do you feel like from that point on, your things are good, or is it a back and forth, kind of messy tangle of things to really, and when you get, if that's the case, do you feel like you're moving backwards, or do you take that as part of the process?
It's a letting go and grabbing onto kind of a thing, and it does go back and forth, definitely does. And it is a challenge. Like your brain is almost fighting itself back and forth. So let that happen, feel it, move through it, you know, understand that there are things back there that maybe you want to attain again. And the approach could be slow, you know, baby steps back towards it, but you kind of always you're circling your old self, and it's just you're hijacked by emotions. You know, your higher executive functioning is impaired, cognitive thinking, everything. You don't even process your world quite right, so you're not even sure what you can do, what you can't do. But really, I think there's a lot of resentment and a lot of anger that holds and anchors people into a place of stuckness. And so when you let go of that, I can only say just do everything with love. Love the injury, love the damage, love the lesson, and love what you're going to do next. Just do everything with love in your heart. If you don't feel it, grab it from the universe and pull it through that way, because that does help shine a light where things just look hopeless.
Thanks, Patty.
Wonderful, thank you.
Angela, how do you feel about that?
I in a different space, and I won't get into that, you know, that is, that it's a situation of loss with a brain injury, or a situation of loss with the loss of a person. And, you know, I think that when I was asking that question, you don't kind of come to this aha moment of, now I got it, right? Now I'm moving forward. And that's why I asked that question of the panel, you know, that if they did, you know, have an aha moment and everything kind of just went forward from there, or if it was a back and forth struggle.
Yeah, there's no aha. It's uh-oh.
Or how you feel when that happens. Because I know people sometimes feel like, oh no, I'm moving backwards, right? Instead of that's part of the process that happens. And that's just, if there's anything to be accepted, maybe that's just part of the process. The back and forth is part of the process, and not moving backwards.
Well, it's back and forth, forward and backwards, you know, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back kind of a thing. So it takes years, and it's taken a lot of therapy. Thank God for the Brain Injury Alliance and their care support program that helped save my life. I wouldn't be here today without them, and their management and consideration of my situation. So yeah, there's support services out there, and you definitely have to grab onto them. There's a lot of support services out there, and a lot of links on the Brain Injury Alliance website for help and for moving forward. It's really moving forward, and you do move back, but it's you can't just give up and die. You have to keep moving. So it's just finding those new things that spark a light in your life. And
Yeah,
Mike, Sandra has a question. She has her hand raised.
Well, so more of a, hello, Mike. What was the original question?
I don't know. It had to do
I
with
think it was
and hopes.
what can you expect of your caregivers?
Yes.
I made a comment about your medical team. The day I was in a rollover car crash. My car flipped and rolled 4 times and went airborne and landed upside down. So, my first responders thought that I was dead. So that's the first thing that you got in your mind. And so luckily I had, when I went to my primary care doctor on Tuesday after the Saturday, I had an excellent primary care doctor that took excellent care of me, sent me to the right medical doctors, specialists, experts that I went to. You mentioned that, you know, the caregivers. I lived with a roommate, so it wasn't a caregiver situation. So I formerly worked in broadcasting and journalism. So my skill set was turned upside down. Because you have to be able to get information at a moment's notice, and that was all taken away. Because I made my living, you know, with words, and I was diagnosed with aphasia real quick. And I guess my roommate told me one day, we were sitting out on the patio, she said, "You look like you want to die." And I guess she felt like I was really depressed, and there's the stages of grief, denial, acceptance, all those. And I guess that's what she was thinking. And I went to the support group at Kessler with Judy at the time when she was still there. My injury was 10 years ago this April. And that's a major milestone. And you go from therapy to therapy to therapy, speech therapy, OT, physicals. I had surgery, rehab, all the things that you have to relearn to do. And your outlook is like, am I going to survive this? What am I going to be after this? And you have to go back to PT sometimes. And I've had several rounds of PT at different stages. And you wonder, like, what am I now as opposed to what I was before? Because I wanted, I don't know how to, and Patty mentioned something about search for the old me. Well, sometimes I can't remember what the old me was. We also talk about the new normal. This is the way you are now. But
so Sandra, what is life like today?
Well, today, I mean, I've always been independent, and I worked in for a national broadcaster, and I was an investigative journalist, and I always wanted to know everything there was, because my professors always said you have to know a little bit about everything. And so I got all the material that the Brain Injury Alliance sent me. I studied issues about the brain and how it worked and how it functioned, and neuroscience and neuropathology and neuropsychology, and how the brain structures worked. And I try to remember what I learned in my, I took oh crap, I can't remember the name of the course I had in college. I can't remember what it was.
That's okay. Don't worry about it.
See, I'm having memory,
And educate yourself, Sandra, right? Like educate and learn about your what it looks like on paper, and see how you measure up to that. Yeah, that's what we're guiding for, is information. That's what we're trying to advocate for, to like settle.
Yeah, you have to advocate for yourself, and you have to do your own research if you're able to do it on your own. And I wanted to find out every little thing I could find out. And I had an excellent neurologist, an excellent vision doctor, an excellent surgeon that operated on me at NYU, because he'd operated on me before. And I wanted to have the best care, the best doctors. And my primary care doctor, when I had an appointment with her to follow up, she would call me in a couple of days to follow up to see how I was. I've never heard of a doctor doing that before. They see you in a visit and that's it. You never hear from them. But Dr. DeProspero, God bless her, she would call me and check up on me, because she knew how serious my condition was. And she took care of me for 4 years until she went back to teaching, because she was a part-time in her practice, and she wanted to go back to teaching at Robert Wood, and that's where she went. And she's excellent caregiver. She was one of those doctors for medicine's sake. She wasn't what I call a checkbook doctor, goes to wants to be a doctor because they want to make a lot of money. But the people at Kessler in the support group, the first night I went, the very first visit I ever went, we were going around and telling our stories, and Judy was the leader. Those of you who work at Kessler know who she was. She's retired now. She led the group, and we went around, and when it got to me, I got real emotional because it was my first time. And Judy said, "Don't worry, everybody cries when they first tell their story," because I got teary-eyed. And anyway, I told what happened to me, and memory issues. after my car accident, I couldn't remember Christmas. I couldn't remember the previous Thanksgiving. I couldn't remember certain months previous to my accident. I remember going to spring training at the Yankees because that was a month's vacation before I had my car wreck. Because, you know, my doctor said you can't go to Yankee Stadium because of the sensation, all the noise, the crowd. And I was devastated because it was Jeter's last season. And I wanted to go so bad. And she said, no, you can't go to that. And I had to watch it on TV, and it was devastating to me because I couldn't be in the stadium for the game. But anyway, my life, I noticed that because of that, my life changed considerably because it was, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, can't do that, you know, and my brain was telling me, yes, you will, you will, you will, you will, because I'm very independent, forceful, motivated person, because I'd always been that way. Because when I was young growing up, it was like, no, that's not for you. You can't do this. You have to choose something else. And my mind told me, it's like, yes, I am going to do it. Don't you tell me no. I'm you know,
So
I wanted to go. Yeah.
You're saying that that you just need to persevere and be resilient and
yes. And if you want to do something, you put it in your mind that you are going to do it.
And like
You have to
also you watched it on TV, so you adjusted to your environment. You adjusted to what you could accommodate what you wanted to do, but you scaled back. So those are the things that we need to do: is like reach out, scale back. You know, keep trying, keep pushing, keep pushing.
Yeah, don't give up.
Right,
There's a quote that I love from Winston Churchill. Never, never, never give up.
And you
Those are great. Those are great messages and sum ups. Mike, we have another question. David has his hand raised.
David.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I have a TBI that was diagnosed about 9 years ago as a result of a craniotomy. And one thing that I have learned in the past 9 years is, one, how fortunate I am in my recovery. And two, that there really is no such thing as a one-size-fits-all diagnosis. And I say that as a preliminary comment to some frustration that I'm having right now with a psychology professor in a course that I'm taking. She seems to think she's an expert on every aspect of psychology and will frequently reference neurodivergent people and or people who have suffered TBIs as an exception to certain rules. And she will explain that, in her view, TBI people all have muted emotions. They are not able to express all of their emotions, or they're all extremely angry. And when I voice a different point of view to her, she just tells me I'm wrong. She goes, studies show that you're just wrong. And I said, well, my life experience shows me otherwise. And how do you deal with people like that? How do you deal with people who seem to think they understand everything about TBI, who really don't?
I don't have all the emotions that I used to have.
Well, that I'm sorry to hear that, Joe, but that doesn't mean that's a universal truth for anyone who suffered a TBI.
So, David, this is Sharon Nolte. That's a great point. The survivor story is absolutely important to, you know, what has changed with brain injury. And I was in DC, and I think it's, you know, we have to go listen to the survivors, and so many doctors, so many research people. And the woman that I have a soft spot in my heart for her always, and I always mispronounce her name. And it's Dr. Nancy Charavarelli. You all know her at Kessler. And I was at a research conference, and she stood there and she talked to me and listened to my story, even while there were panel discussions. And I have never, ever forgotten how she made me feel, and that she felt that she said, no, Sharon, she said, no, I want to hear your story. It's important. And I think you just have to go. And I just went to a conference, a Brain Injury Alliance conference, a national conference in Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago. And the exciting part that I think we have to hold on to is hope. And we can, and we are on the forefront of change. I mean, this whole neurology sector is changing as we speak. And I think some of it is just, she said, your professor says one thing and you can think another. And you can just keep going as true to yourself. And I think sometimes we just have to take a deep breath and shut our mouths when we really want to strangle someone. I did several weeks ago, but I didn't. I just sat there and smiled.
David, are you able
Near and dear, and there are so many people in this that will help.
Over my
And
experience,
and they're doing groundbreaking research.
over my experiences, I can never remember two brain injured people that had the same solution, anything like that. So I was a teacher for 40 years, and I find it difficult to criticize another teacher, but when you use something to describe a brain injured person, you can't describe them as a general rule, because if there are 5 brain injured people, then there are 5 different solutions.
Exactly.
And actually, they're not solutions, they're only partial solutions. So I really thank you for your question. And I hope that things like that get a little bit better. The main thing is live along with it and see what happens. At least if you're in a support group, you know that there are other people that feel the same way you do.
So David, are you able to go see another doctor? Is it a team that you're stuck with there?
No, this isn't a part of my medical team. This is part of my academic career, independent of my medical team. But it's just extremely frustrating because I do have to sit there and, to a certain extent, not debate the issue with her and keep my mouth shut, because otherwise she's going to turn around and say, see, anybody who had a TBI is angry.
No, see, David, what happened to me is I lost my emotions completely. I'm completely numb and void of emotions after they went haywire and hijacked. It went into a vacuum of void. So there are different mood and different psychological aspects of this, and one size doesn't fit all. And if you don't like the narrative that they're putting down, you have to write your own narrative and get your story out there and advocate for what you're going through, because we all have, to a greater or lesser degree, the same kind of effects, but we're at different phases of it. And so really just getting your voice out there and sharing your experience enlightens and educates those who don't want to believe. My neurologist doesn't even believe in post-concussion syndrome. So I just use her for pain management. You just got to deal with, you can't, they're stuck in their ways. Unfortunately, sometimes you're stuck with them. So you just write it out, write your own narrative and express that somehow. Join us, voices.
Well, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, there are some comments from Marcianne in the chat and really about what are some good ways to find support besides the support groups. And specifically, she's struggling with online support groups.
Okay.
I wonder if you have any comments about other ways to find support besides support groups.
I learned about support groups through Kessler. And then after that, I learned about Chick from my support group. Well, it's Voices now, but it was Chick then. So a lot of people say they don't, they don't tell you, but they do tell you.
Let me ask you a question, and this is from my panel. We said we would want to learn about pleasure activities that a person with brain injury can do as they live with brain injury. Can anybody comment on any pleasure activities that you've gotten into as a result of brain injury?
Yeah, I started photography and I didn't like it.
Okay.
Then after that, I went to graphics design and I really wasn't good at it.
Okay.
So I started writing. And even though it takes me long, like the last book that I ever did was 4 years ago. And this is like only 79 pages. And it took me 4 years to write because I get tired and my brain just doesn't process the way it used to.
But you did it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You didn't give up. That's what was important.
No, because if you give up and you feel sorry for yourself, you're in the worst way. Putting yourself in the worst way.
Any other pleasure activities that we can discuss? And my question goes not only to my panel, but it also goes to the audience. Is there anything after your brain injury that you do that gives you pleasure?
Yeah, Mike, I picked up photography, crafting. I make dream catchers. I started wood burning at the beginning of the pandemic. And just trying new things and what you can do with where you're at. Starting slow. Walking. I had a dog. I got a dog during all of this, and then would work, exercise with her, walking. Just anything to get out of your space, of your headspace, and just take in the world. Go to the beach. Go do something. Take a ride, drive if you can. Yeah, pleasure things. It's hard because when you're stuck and you're angry and resenting the injury, it's hard to get pleasure out of pain. But you have to see the beauty in things and in the world and take that in for what it is. Every moment, every little moment, take the wins.
Mike, we've got about 2 minutes left in case you want to wrap up or you have any last thoughts.
That's okay. Patty, it seems like anger is the one thing that gets in the way.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, as part of the grieving process, and then we get to the resentment, and we get to the anger part, and then it's stuck because you just can't come to terms with, you can't come to the reality. It's the process, the injury from where you were to where you're at, and it holds you in that stagnant pattern. But you have to break through that web. And push through that anger, resentment part and find that light within, because that will help you.
So everybody in our audience, I would really put a little star by that. Anger gets in the way. Try, if you are angry, to take that anger and put it down some other hole, rabbit hole, as Patty would say. We only have a couple of minutes left. Is there any from the audience that didn't ask something that they really wanted to? I mean, for God's sakes, everybody, it's something that we get on the internet maybe once every 3 months and take an opportunity to talk to people who have the same problems as you do.
Being a person who likes to write and works in journalism, I'm trying to put forward, I'm trying to write a book, a crime book. I always said I wanted to be the female John Grisham. So that's what I do. I watch crime stories all over every TV program I can find. I'm a Law and Order junkie, and so that's what I do. I know I've got a book in me. I just haven't been able to start it yet.
We're out of time for today. So Mike, I really want to thank you for joining us today and for leading this discussion. I also want to thank all the panelists and certainly everyone for attending today. If you want more information on Mike at the Mic, Voices, or the BIANJ, including their upcoming seminar on May 1st, please see their website at bianj.org, which will also be in the chat. And be on the lookout for our new edition of our newsletter, Brainwaves, which will be out in April. And if you're interested in any more of our events or participating in our research, much of which can be done remotely, please check us out on the Kessler Foundation website. And Mike, again, thank you so much for being here today and for leading this discussion.
Our group would like to thank Kessler so much. I appreciate the fact that you gave us a place to at least talk out everything. And if everybody, anybody who was a little bit afraid to join in today would like to, at least you look into the Brain Injury Alliance, look for Voices, and that group Voices gives you a place to say something.
Thank you.
Join a study at kesslerfoundation.org/join.